Let's go in the McAfee then?
Yep.
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Who is John McAfee? Guys, there's been a lot of stuff going on in John McAfee. People have been kind of studying up on who he was, what he was. He was a very interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's watch what Johnny's got first. This tells a little bit about who John McAfee is. Okay.
I'm John McAfee. I'm the guy that was accused of murdering police and ran into Guatemala. The FBI is going to be looking for me if you don't call him, sir.
The FBI?
When John came up with antiviral software, 90% of the people weren't even aware of viruses.
By 1993, McAfee controlled 67% of the desktop antivirus market.
When he first came into the country, he was very friendly.
He donated a considerable amount of equipment to police.
If you're giving donations to the police, are there some motives behind that?
He was getting paranoid. I started seeing more and more security people.
He had guys with criminal records, give them gun.
I think he really wanted to create a cult or a mystique like Colonel Kurtz. And here he is in the heart of darkness.
How many girlfriends did he have?
At least 5 or 6 girls.
I do have teenage girlfriends, and many at a time.
He would talk about his hitmen, how he could have people hurt or killed. And he brought me 2 pills and a glass of orange juice. And I woke up dizzy, and he was standing over me naked. He went from 0 to crazy in like 2 seconds.
David broke into John's home and stole stuff.
So John asked me if I could bring 3 guys up here, slap him up, teach him a little respect.
A full torture. Take knife, cut him up, stares at him in the mouth and the face.
And then he died.
John's dogs ran on the beach, and they were really ferocious. Greg Fall had it with those dogs and said, I'm going to poison those dogs. Mr. Fall was found dead. He had been executed.
I still can't believe it.
John calls me and says, I need you to get me out of the country alive. We just put him on a boat and dump him in land in Guatemala.
I've been running through jungles and rivers and oceans.
Now he's back in the United States. It was as if it hadn't happened. He goes from running away from something to now running for President of the United States.
I don't see how he can lose. I'm serious.
He had apparently gotten away with possible murder and rape, all seemingly without consequence.
He's legitimized himself again.
And I see him regaining that reputation.
Please turn your cameras off.
And he's dangerous.
Gringo,
Wow.
The Dangerous Life. Well, I thought it was important to show that because there's a lot of speculation out there. You know, he maintained his innocence on the murder.
Mm-hmm.
He maintained his innocence on the rape. But that was out there. And there's a lot of people who said, well, who, it seems like, John was definitely responsible for the death of that man with his dogs. If it wasn't him, it was his staff, his pirates of sorts, I'm saying, that he armed to the T. And, he escaped that right now, then came back to the States, and then it went back on to the whole, okay, he's now enemy of the state. He's running as a libertarian candidate. I mean, there's a lot of footage of John McAfee in all these, cryptocurrency situations, so these little, what do you call these little events, Johnny,
Mm-hmm.
festivals.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talks about it, he talks about how, the monetary system could be changed. He was like the first Elon Musk-ish guy when it came to crypto. He put something out there, and that would sway the market up or down. John McAfee was that guy. I do have a clip right here of his last voice message because it tells a different story than the trailer we just saw. Now, the trailer we did just see, though, Showtime, Daily Beast.
Right.
We know who these people are.
Right.
So we have to also realize what kind of message they're trying to put out there, what the government wants to be this guy to be portrayed as. You know what I'm saying? As evil, as a demon. If he did have a lot of information, which he claims to have, and we will show you some of the stuff, he could be public enemy number 1. So
also, it's just worth pointing out that there were a lot of the same portrayals of Julian Assange. Now, Julian Assange is a journalist. Obviously, he's a little bit different, but at the same time, he was accused of rape. He was accused of so many things, smeared. It's still to this day, people believe those things, even though the cases were thrown out. I'm not saying, that it did or didn't happen with McAfee. I'm just saying, the way things are framed by those in power, is always suspect, especially when it comes to people who have information or are whistleblowers. And we'll see in later on, and we'll talk to Steve too once he gets into town as well, because Steve did have the opportunity to interview him last year. So.
We'll play the little clip I put up too as well, and we also have somebody else that we can possibly have on that was actually, and we'll get to that soon when we get to that. Let's listen to his last voicemail. According to online reports, once again, this is supposedly John McAfee's last voice message.
People have suggested that it's not really me tweeting on my Twitter account since I'm in prison. Most of you know my voice. For those that do not, my humor, which is obscure, certainly must shine through. In any case, it is actually me. But now the more important things. I love you all, and I miss being able to share videos and photos with you. It is impossible for America to extradite me. I do believe this. The documentation they have quote, discovered about me, they simply pulled out of their ass. And the Spanish people and Spanish courts are not stupid. So, do not worry. I may even get out on bail in a week or two. And if not, I will eventually be freed here. I do miss you all and wish that I could share fully with you. I love you. Keep up the fight against the madness and cancer that's been invading America. Goodbye, my friends.
He always spoke out against the system that we have here in America. He claimed to have a lot of dirt on a lot of officials. And he also claimed that it was the United States government that set him up with the whole police thing. Like they went on, they framed him for this crime. They destroyed a bunch of his property and all this other stuff. So he always claims that he was set up when it comes to that situation. You know what I'm saying?
And it's like, well, I mean, at this point, whose word do you take? The United States government? Look what they're doing, or his? I mean, it sounds outlandish to people, right? When somebody's framed this way and portrayed this way in the media, and then they say, no, that I was framed and the government did this. It sounds crazy. But trust me, in this past year, anything is possible. After what I've seen and the encroaching fascism that's coming into this country, I firmly believe that people are being targeted, and that people who speak out against the government are being particularly targeted, and we're seeing it now in incoming legislation. So
if you think about McAfee, where he comes from, created the antivirus, all this situation. This is the interview. We watched the whole interview last night, me and Johnny, but we took a clip. Zach Voorhees, who's been on the show before, he was the whistleblower at Google. He put this up. But this is something right here that's very interesting, which, once again, McAfee has said some stuff before that he has information, blah, blah, blah. So, a lot of people are questioning, is he full of shit? Is he for real? But this particular interview right here, this is a quick minute and a half clip of some of the stuff he said that was really kind of shined a light on the information he could potentially have. Take a look.
When I went on the run in Belize, I had friends in the U.S. Embassy in Belize. I knew what was coming down. I'm not stupid. I had arranged with the head of security. I was going to come in. He said, sir, we have it from the highest authority. We are not to allow you entry into the U.S. Embassy. Understand me. Who was the highest authority of the State Department? Hillary Clinton. I'm an American citizen with a American passport. I'm sorry. I'm not wanted in America. I've got no crimes in America. Is it not a reason to say, I don't think I'm going to vote for you?
And yet you're here now.
For a month and a half, I was on the run. The reason that the government wanted to collect me was that after they had raided my property in 2012 in the jungle, shot my dog, abused me, destroyed $500,000 worth of my property over a bogus charge, I was pissed off. And so I donated to many secretaries within the government laptop computers, really nice ones, that were preloaded with viral spyware. Within a week, the entire government computer system was under my control. I was watching, monitoring, listening. I was looking for information that they had set me up for that raid. I didn't find that. I did find out that the Minister of National Defense was the largest drug trafficker in all of Central America. And the Minister of Immigration, the largest human trafficker.
We don't want to get killed by them either, so we're probably not going to
That's fine. That's fine.
I mean, it was supposed to be like a funny interview of sorts, but fam, that stuff that he was saying, and he was talking about, like, you know, he was going to oust a couple CIA people, a couple Bahamian officials that were part of the whole human trafficking situation. So, I mean, it's just like, you know, he does have the capability.
Yeah, that's the thing. He does.
You know,
he does have the knowledge to be able to do that. It's not like just some guy that's saying, "Oh, he did freaking McAfee for years." That's been on your computer.
Exactly.
McAfee, Like, it's just like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. And if you think what McAfee does, it finds the viruses and stuff. So knowing how to find a virus, you better believe you'll be able to plant one. And that is the question, right? We'll get a little bit more into the whole, what's going on, because there was talks that McAfee had said that he's going to leave a dead man switch. And once he dies, he's going to leave information out there and trails to that information. But I want to point out Adam Kokesh, because Adam Kokesh was his running mate in 2020. I just did a show recently. I did Action for Assange with Misty and Andrew, and it was me and Adam who were the guest. And it was a great show, a fun show. I thought the guy was awesome. Adam Kokesh was on RT the other day. Here's a little clip. He lost it a little bit, but we got to show it, because he's even talking about the death of what's going on when it comes to John McAfee.
Okay, well, we're joined now by Adam Kokesh, who was a US presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party at the last election, where John McAfee was his running mate. And you're very welcome. Thanks for your time tonight, Adam. Thanks for coming on. Just tell us, from your own perspective, how will you remember John McAfee? Because he was a very colourful character.
Well, first, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I want to take the chance first to say, I will never commit suicide in government custody. Unfortunately, saying that was not sufficient protection for our friend John, but to any FBI agents who are watching or listening to this right now, let me say I have information that is critical to you preventing a crime from happening. I want to talk to you. I want my file. I want John McAfee's file. And I want a fucking whistleblower. It's time for this crap to end. Enough killing activists. John McAfee was not killed.
Adam,
for
if I could just
evading
ask you, I understand you feel very strongly here, but if you could just mind your language for all our viewers at home too. But let's just come on to the conspiracies that are surrounding this case too.
I appreciate your standard of decorum and respect for the fact that a friend of mine was just murdered by government in custody, and this is something that a risk that I have faced, that many activists ongoing continue to face, as you yourself mentioned, that Julian Assange and many other high-profile whistleblowers face, as Aaron Swartz faced, as so many others. How many people have to commit suicide with 2 gunshot wounds to the back of their head before people wake up? This is insane. This is ridiculous. And yeah, John McAfee, you want me to answer? I'm going to remember him as the guy who got arrested for smoking a joint, went right back, smoked another joint, and went back and kept doing it until he didn't get arrested, because he was the guy. People respect me for political activism, for civil disobedience, for, I walk up to the line and I step over the line and I go, oh my gosh, did you get that on camera? John McAfee, there was no line. You try to point it out to him in the first place, he'd say, you're full of crap. That's just more government nonsense. And he was a free spirit. He was one of a kind. And, maybe just, too powerful. Too much of a threat to the system for them to let him live.
Adam, look, good to get your thoughts tonight. We appreciate your time and coming on and speaking to us so early after this news.
Adam Kokesh, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to reach out to him so we can get him on the show too as well. I had an amazing show with him, because he was like, he was listening to me talk about elections, and it was like, wow, and he was like, he gave his perspective about like elections. He goes, I think we're above and beyond elections right now at this point. Yeah. When it comes to the imperialist state of America, it's like, forget about that stuff. We really need to take matters into our own hands. And you heard what he said about Assange right now. Snowden just said that, says after McAfee's death by suicide, that Assange could be next. You know what I'm saying? And, in the Steve interview, when Steve Slow News Day did the interview, he did talk about Assange too as well. He said if Assange wasn't as high profile as Assange was, he'd be dead by now. He'd be gone.
Yeah.
The fact is that he's too much lights and too much eyes on Assange right now that they're trying to use the law to torture him and make sure. But there's also entities that said they wanted to make sure that John McAfee died in prison are the same kind of mentalities. They want to make sure that Julian Assange dies in prison. Slow torture, die in prison. So
it's just wow. I mean, there's just too many coincidences here, right? Too many people have died. We've found out, right, that the FBI and the CIA were responsible for the death of pretty much every Black Panther activist or civil rights activist from back in the day. Then you have the Kennedys, Robert and John, and then you find out years later that these things that were considered conspiratorial at the time were actually true, that the government did have a heavy hand, if not in the entire hand, in their deaths. And that is no longer arguable. So are we going to wait till somebody else to start investigating? People think like this is all like still that this is conspiratorial, but it really isn't. I mean, at the very least, it mitigates some sort of investigation, some sort of questioning, especially with what's happening with Julian Assange and the United States seeking international jurisdiction of the entire press, and simultaneously as they're just taking away our freedoms as Americans when it comes to free speech, when it comes to your freedom of press, when it comes to freedom of protest. So there's too much going on that's correlated. And of course, the technocratic panopticon that's happening within the privatization of our resources. So I really think that the people have wised up, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah. Well, I think, too, a lot of people will kind of do what they did with Julian when people accused Julian of being a rapist. The same thing that we saw that first video that we got out there, because I thought it was only fair that we showed that side about what potentially could have, what he could be guilty of. You know what I'm saying? And once they see that, they immediately, oh, no, this guy's a scumbag. I don't care what he has to say.
Right, exactly.
They put it away. But you got to understand the intricacies of how, against the machine John McAfee was. He was one of those first pioneers when it came to blockchain, when it came to Bitcoin. And here's an interview I found about 4 years ago of him on RT and just him explaining. And it was so many crypto, events that he went to or, conventions where he talked about, well, the government can't do this. The government's not going to be able to do this. This is a mathematical solution. You know what I'm saying? It's owned by everybody. It's owned by the people. So not only was he that true libertarian about freedoms, whatnot, he also pushed about a monetary system within the blockchain against the United States government. I just want to play this really quick clip right over here. It's less than 2 minutes of John talking about blockchain and Bitcoin on RT several years ago.
Well, someone who disagrees with you on the term of bubble when it comes to Bitcoin is Mark Cuban. Back in June, he tweeted, "I think it's a bubble. I just don't know when or how much it corrects." When everyone is bragging about how easy they're making money, that equals a bubble. Now, when he tweeted that, Bitcoin dipped in price. So how can one person's random Twitter thread have that effect on the price? And what does it say about Bitcoin stability?
Well, it says nothing about Bitcoin stability. After it dropped $500, it's now at 44. So these temporary fluctuations are meaningless, created by speculators, people who do not understand the fundamental technology of the blockchain. Those who do know that in the long term, these fluctuations will make no difference. The more people who use Bitcoin, the more valuable it will become. This is the only metric we can use.
Now, Bitcoin and blockchain go hand in hand, but blockchain's ability to track financial transactions in a way that is incorruptible, it gives it infinite amount of uses outside of the original purpose of using it for Bitcoin. Do you see blockchains overtaking certain aspects of the financial system as we know it now?
It will take over all aspects. People think that Bitcoin or the blockchain is owned by someone, by a company or by a consortium. No, this is strictly a mathematical formula that nobody owns, that we are all participating in. And we use the blockchain for everything from fixing supply chain problems in corporations to verifying the authenticity of the sender and receiver in a financial transaction. It is the most powerful technology that the world has seen, I believe, since the invention of agriculture.
Now, John, we've showed our viewers Bitcoin's rise just in...
Could be used in elections,
I was just going to say, the
Well, blockchain-
authenticity of elections.
It's serious. Yes.
100%.
I mean, a lot of people still concentrate on going to hand counting, getting rid of the
I think
computers
you
altogether.
should still have hand counting as a backup.
In addition, right?
In addition
Yes.
to, but blockchain would be
And
the
an
only
open
way I
source
would
system?
think. Right, but it would be like the only way I would say technology might be okay with that because that's the only way I see it, right? Like it's 100%.
So the reason why I played that video before we get into this right now, because I can't get too deeply into this because I don't know a lot about the mumbo jumbo when I see a lot of stuff. But this is a thread that's been getting a lot of popularity.
Mm-hmm.
He started a coin.
Right.
Was it called Epstein, Johnny? Epstein didn't kill himself, and whacked was the. I don't know how it's framed, but he put it on his arm, and that was when he was talking about, like, I'm not going to hang myself, and we're going to show this thread over here too as well, because the thought process is that he would release the dead man switch on the Ethereum network. Okay, that's where his coin was all from. Now, he said he had 31 terabytes of information. Now, this is it right here. Getting subtle messages from U.S. officials saying, in effect, we're coming for you, McAfee. We're going to kill yourself. I got a tattoo today just in case. If I suicide myself, I didn't. I was whacked. Check my right arm. And that was the coin. Whacked. Available on McAfee FedEx or McAfedex.com. You can't even go to that website anymore. It brings you to somewhere else. You can't, whatnot. But in this Twitter thread, it says, Etherscan wallet named Epstein with a tracker ID whacked wakes up after being asleep. Starts sending unknown addresses. McAfee may not be bluffing about the dead man switch. And it has all these things over here. It has the wallet. And once again, I'm content here. I have friends. The food is good. This is that next picture. Know that I didn't hang myself, a la Epstein. It will be no fault of mine. Yes. And that, once again, we just read the other tweet with the whacked on it. But here is something, and some people are saying this came from 4chan. Okay, holy shit! The code in the Q picture. And if you didn't know this, now his Instagram has been shut down. But when he died, or it was announced he was dead, a big Q came up on his Instagram. Okay, but here, this is going to say what's going on. Holy shit! The code in the Q picture was actually a hexadecimal representation of a private key for an Ethereum wallet. The wallet is empty and has no transaction history on mainnet. But if you look at Rokfin testnet, there's a test development of whacked contract prior to it being launched on the mainnet. What did I say? Deployment, sorry. There was also a new test contract launched 6 days ago from the same address, but the code is not published to scour mainnet to find a similar contract. WTF is going on here? I'm pretty good with Ethereum, so do some Solidity programming. But might need some assembly ninjas to help reverse engineer this contract code to see what the fuck it is. How the F is he deploying contracts and posting on social media with hidden keys to wallets, creating contracts from jail or dead? This shit had my heart rate through the roof. I need a fucking Xanax. John, do you want to give any perspective to that?
Yeah, no. So I saw in another thread that the Q picture where they got that representation, the hexadecimal thing, is metadata, but it's not anything. That stuff. The metadata is different for each picture. Like Instagram puts its own metadata. So someone put it in Photoshop. You can put a picture. And you can change the metadata to a picture or something like that.
Yeah.
When you take a picture, it has like specific metadata about like when it was taken and stuff like that. Or you can make comments on the picture that comes with the picture. But yeah, apparently that was debunked. But the only thing that is weird is that the Q definitely showed up on his Instagram account after he was announced dead.
Yeah.
And this shit definitely started happening too. This Ethereum whack thing, which was his, because his was an ERC20 token, which is the same thing that a Ray token is. It's a whacked token. So, and that just I don't know, that started being used all of a sudden. So that's good. And the what else is true is all these messages that he sent out. This was while he was in jail. He says, I will not hang myself, a la Epstein. And then he said, I'm getting some messages. So that's why he got that tattoo. So that's interesting, you know. So there's something suspicious there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
What about the last part of that, Johnny? Is it worth, if you go down where you were streaming the video with the girl trying to show the connections financially? I watched that several times trying to right there. I watched that several times trying to keep track of that, kind of looking into it.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
Guys, go if you want to go look at that thread yourself, please do so. A lot of interesting stuff. It's got a lot of play. It's got like 22,000 likes almost. So a lot of people were looking at it. When I talked to Jason Burmis about it yesterday, he was like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen a dead man switch really work.
Yep.
This is kind of confusing in some ways. It could be hit or miss. You know, they don't know. But there are talks that he was leaving a dead man switch of sorts, that he had all this information on a lot of the way the government merged with big tech. You know what I'm saying? Because that was his field. So it's interesting, something to look at.
The reality is, the facts are, he put out those tweets, and then the coin thing. Those are the facts, and the Q thing. That has nothing to do.
And the fact that his Instagram got taken down
right away.
Yes.
Got taken down. So.
Which they really shouldn't be able to do. I mean, his wife was running it. He was getting messages to his wife to tweet and stuff. So a lot of people say she could have just put the Q up over there, but I think she's doing what she was told to do. And there might be a master plan. Who knows? We don't know. John McAfee, a lot of people say he's not even dead, because there's on this thread, they said that there was a military plane that went from Spain to the United States. So once again, it's the a la Epstein. They're still holding him. You know, what's going on? Who knows? It's just a lot of stuff.
And a lot of his tweets got scrubbed also from Twitter.
Yes. Yeah.
Here was another tweet that he put up. He says, I outed CIA agent Kent, Commissioner Roll, and Talis Bethel. I did this to prove I have data. It keeps me alive. See this? If I go, people in other countries have this data and will release it. One in England wants to be named. His reasons, you are brave. And then he @s somebody, and then that account doesn't exist anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of tweets. You'll see screenshots of tweets everywhere.
Yeah.
That he had info. He said it in the Adult Swim interview that he had info.
Mm-hmm.
He invented McAfee. I think he wasn't a part of McAfee though for like 20 years or something. Like, you know, he gave up ownership or something.
He gave up ownership?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about that, but.
Well, he's also a philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
We have a great interview with Steve Poikonen, Slow News Day. We'll be seeing him soon with doing all the Julian Assange work that you know him from Action for Assange. I clipped up this little one part right over here to just give you a taste of who this gentleman is. I put a little music in there. Let's take a look. We'll quick look, and please go and watch the whole interview. It's awesome. He also talks about a story about how he was on the run in the Bahamas, how he went to Cuba. They were pretty much thumbing giving their middle finger to America, posting pictures on social media, and then he arrives in Cuba, and he's hanging out in Cuba for a while, and a general comes and is like, Mr. McAfee, you're going to have to leave. We could take you into custody, but we're not going to do that, but you have to leave in 72 hours because your presence here that you've made aware to people is causing problems for us, for the United States.
Christ.
So he had to take off and go to the Dominican Republic, and it's an interesting story. Please go watch the interview. It's amazing that Steve got this interview in the first place. Here's a little clip of John McAfee. This is just great.
Can humanity solve humanity's problems, or are we doomed to be ruled by AI overlords?
Dude, I thought you were a nice man. I mean, you threw me a curve here, okay? What are humanity's problems? We have a society that gives a pretense of politeness, order, relative violence, and a structured means of communicating and interacting with one another. It's called culture. But culture is the thinnest of all veneers. Think of what's under culture, the human creature. Yes, we love, we have compassion, we hope, we dream, we're caring, we're helpful. I mean, there is not a single human, I truly believe this, on the planet that if you were walking on a path by the river and a child was drowning, you would not jump in and save the child, provided you could swim. If you couldn't, you'd be screaming for help. I truly believe that. However, that same creature is full of anger, greed, jealousy, fear, everything negative. And the reason that when our leaders become powerful, that they also
universally become corrupt is because those beautiful aspects of the human animal, hopes, dreams, love, they don't need power, do they? What power does love need to activate? Nothing. You reach out to another human being and your heart fucking opens. The good parts don't need power. And without power, we're pretty much in balance. What does need power? Hatred, anger, revenge. These things, they need power. And when you give the human animal power, does love expand? No, love stays the same. What expands? Greed, jealousy, anger, all of the things that we are trying to push down through culture. And that thin veneer of culture cracks and disintegrates, and the powerful, ugly person emerges.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yep.
That was like a year ago.
Mhm.
That was before he was picked up. Ah, great job, Steve. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, and Steve asked these great questions. Like, I mean, you know, that's why he says, "You son of a bitch. I thought you were a nice man." And he asked a couple questions like that. He's like, "Oh, God, I really hate you people. The truth seekers," is what he called
Yeah.
Steve. Like, I hate, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, "You wanted me to talk about this?" There's a question about Bill Gates in there. It's just, guys, go watch the video. It's
Yeah, it's on Rokfin, and they
amazing-
pinned it, by the way. If you go to Slow News Day, they
It's
pinned
amazing. It's amazing. Or you can go to the tweet, like the tweet, and click on the link and go right there too as well. Kill two birds with one stone. The last video I have, Johnny, we don't have to play the whole thing, but it was kind of interesting. She was on, John was on Sophie Co.
Mhm.
And this really video just give you a little taste of what John was all about. How anti-imperialist he was. How he hated the government. He thought they were just fascist in all ways. Let's just play a little of it, Johnny. Yeah. Let's just play a little of it and cut it whenever you're ready, and we'll just finish up this section right here. A little bit more.
Please,
taste.
governments become corrupt always. Power inevitably corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. Please, this is the truth of life since the beginning of the human race. And so our government, can you say our government is not powerful? If it is powerful, there is corruption somewhere in it. A suspected person is not a guilty person. Until you are proven guilty, you have all the rights that everybody else has. This is America. We have a constitution. I am sorry. And I am not a terrorist, and neither are you to my knowledge. And just because there are terrorists, should you give up your right to privacy? Absolutely not. Do you realize what madness that would bring, what chaos? Our society would come unglued. We can't do that.
I have no political stance. I believe that it does not matter eventually what party is in power. The political process goes on as it always will. Power corrupts. People in power tend to do what all people in power do. I don't have a political stance. I do have a stance as an individual and as a member of society. I do not want someone looking through my bedroom window, whether it's an impartial observer or not, whether they're going to prosecute me or not. I want some privacy to do the things that we as human beings need privacy for. And we're losing that. We're losing that to a great extent. I think people need to make their...
That's great, right? I don't want to play more. Like, just guys, go check it out. It's on Instagram, Sophie Co. I mean, but you know, fam, your thoughts on John McAfee?
I mean, I think he's right. Philosophically, I agree with him. From that standpoint, that's what I was just telling Cultist Demon. I mean, I think, you know, authoritarianism is essentially if you have a big form of centralized government, at some point it's going to be corrupted, no matter what ideology you espouse. So this is why I believe in decentralization, because it's just so much more difficult to corrupt something that is more in the hands of everybody rather than just one person or just one institution or one whatever. And so I philosophically, I mean, I 100% power corrupts. I mean, the more powerful you are, the more ambitious you are, the more you see it when people become wealthier, when people go into positions of power. What happens? You know, they lose touch with what they once were. And this happens time and time again. You could talk about the Squad. You could talk about even Bernie. You could talk about any politician you have ever admired, or any philosopher, or like intellectual. Once they lose that activist on the ground working class identity, and they have more power because they're looked on as an authority figure, they change, or the stakes are not the same for them. So I think philosophically, I think he was on the right track, and I there's so much mystery to this guy, and I think some of these whistleblowers and anons, they do that because it's part of also protection too, like really not to keep some elements of yourself inside and be, you know, a little bit private, but simultaneously sharing as much as what you know that can potentially help the world. So
yeah. Cultist Demon says, and this, thank you very much for the Super 8 contribution, says, sounds like McAfee was living the libertarian dream, a private capitalist warlord. This is what the libertarianism is. It's a sick ideology of the party bourgeois. That's the way I see it, at least. You know, it's hard to argue that in some ways, and some ways it's not. I mean, because really, when it comes about freedom and privacy, when it comes to libertarianism, obviously, you know, he's talking about the way power corrupts, but look at the power he had with his money in Belize. He was acting like a warlord down there of sorts.
Right. There's that element of human contradiction and human hypocrisy. I mean, if we're going to stay on the philosophy aspect of it, right, too.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I always say Bitcoin is a means right now that could help people, but it's definitely not the end. And I'm still, you know, suspect of anything that relies on capitalism for that reason, because capitalism still is easily corruptible ambition.
It's still capitalism. It was just meant to take the power away from the central banks and make it about free capitalism of sorts. You know what I'm saying? Which, once again, the free market, we always talk about that. There's a lot of positives, but, you know, I agree with you. At the end of the day, fam, and it's not the final solution. There are poor people out there living on the streets who don't even have access to a bank account, don't have access to a phone. There's a lot of people in the world who don't have all those things and stuff. So it's just like, hello, like, you know, how are we gonna help the most vulnerable out there is the question, because every day it still burns my ass when I walk outside my house and I walk around this town and I see homeless people walking around the streets, and I look them in the face and I look them in the eyes and I see the suffering they're going through, and it pisses me the fuck off. The richest nation in the world, and we have almost 750,000 homeless people by the time this whole, whatever you want to call this, theatrics of the fucking COVID are over. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it's going to be a money switch. They're going to kick more money upstairs, and less people are going to own, and more individuals are going to own more. And that includes housing. Yeah. Johnny was talking about the other day what we saw. They don't want you to own. They want you to pay rent, so you don't own any assets whatsoever. And that's what they're attempting to do, so it does burn my ass.